Welcome back to the Circuit Revival. On the desk today we've got this Sculpture Compressor guitar pedal by NUX. I believe the fault with this is no power. I don't think it turns on. So we'll start by just testing that. If we look at the back, we can see it is center pin negative and outer pin positive. So I've got here a power lead which has the same as we can just see hopefully there. So we'll plug it in and we'll give it a go, and hopefully it is a no power and we've not been deceived. So we should be able to just plug this into the top here and we have power. Maybe not a no power then. So what I suppose I'll do is I'll try plugging this in and see whether we get any sound out of it, because this may just be the most simplest fix ever.
Okay, so we're set up here in the studio. I've got everything plugged in. So I've got my guitar into the compressor pedal here, running through into just the interface there. Everything's set up on Pro Tools. It's all linked in. If this works, we should be able to turn it on and we should hear. So we can turn the pedal on and then we should get some sound if this is all good. No. So it looks like what's the issue then is that it's not a no power issue, it's a no sound issue. So we'll get it back to the mat and we'll take a look at it.
So here we are back at the desk. We'll get it open and see if we can't spot anything immediate. So this is actually the first pedal I've ever opened. I've got a few pedals myself in the studio, but I've never actually opened any of them, so I don't know how they work really. But the fact that we have no output makes me think that it's possibly an issue on the input side or the actual output side there, because it might not be getting any sound in, but then again, it might just not be outputting anything. So we'll open it up, see if we can see anything immediately. So the back of this is just 4 Phillips screws, so nice and easy to get into. And is always the case, I'm no expert at any of this. I'm just trying my best to get things to work. So don't copy what I do, it's probably completely wrong. Okay, here we go. So back is off and we immediately come into just the PCB. So it looks like I might need to loosen off the little jack inputs here to be able to lift it up. So it looks like it's sort of pressure fit in there with those. So I'm just going to get a pair of pliers and just loosen that off slightly. There's that side. We'll do the same on this side. Okay, so they're now loose. So we'll see, will this lift up? Okay, it's moving, but it looks like the pot's on the top holding it in place. So I'm hoping these just lift off. There's 1, there's 2, and the third one. There we go. So they're nice and easy. You can't get them on wrong because there's inside there, if you can see, there's sort of, it's idiot proof. There's a notch cut out that matches the notches on these here. So hopefully that should just lift up now. Okay, so the board is actually in 2 parts. That's kind of interesting. So it might be one side and not the other side. Okay, I can't see anything immediately there. And it just fits onto the other board through these little pins here that kind of line up there and there. So nothing immediately stands out on this side. And it doesn't look like there's anything that immediately stands out on the other side either. So I don't think it's anything to do with this top side here, because we know that it's turning on, and this looks more like the power side. and maybe the controllers for the actual things, but the level's all the way up and it works. Sustain's already up and it works. So I'm thinking it's more likely to be an issue on this board here. So what I'll do to begin with is might just test to make sure that the pins are getting to where they need to. So what I'll do is I'll grab one of the cables, plug it in, and just match to make sure that each of these pins is getting to where it needs to, and then we'll double check from there. So I've got the guitar lead that I was using to test this out just here. So they're just mono 1/4 inch jacks. We'll get our multimeter and we'll put it in continuity, which is the mode that beeps when the leads touch, and we'll just double check to make sure everything comes through. So start off with, if we just go on the cable itself, there to there, works, and then sleeve there, works. So we know the cable's fine. So we should hopefully be able to plug this in, and then we should go from here to the tip, and it's fine. And then the sleeve is also fine, and the sleeve comes up on the other two. Although, looks like maybe there might be some kind of short or something here, because all three connections are all showing as connecting. So that might be our issue. We'll just try the other side. Can't quite remember which way is the input and the output. We can just try and work that out. So this is the input side. Now that feels wrong to me, that each of those pins is connecting to either side, but maybe I'm not sure, because I figured that the first two should be the sleeve, and then the top one should be the tip, and then so it shouldn't show up on both sides. Okay, let me just double check that on ohms instead. Maybe it's just because it's low. We put this here. So if we go sleeve to sleeve, .6, so that is a direct short. And if we go sleeve to tip on the other side, 23. Okay, so it's possibly just because it's low, it's coming up. And then tip to tip, that's a direct short again. Okay, so let's try that again. Let's go tip, tip. Not sure why that's not showing anything. We'll go sleeve. Okay, it might just be my leads playing up. So let's go sleeve. That's a direct short. There's a direct short. And that's that. So we know the leads are working absolutely fine. So it's probably not the input or the output. We'll just test the other side just in case, but there is continuity through all of it, so I don't think it is the jack ports themselves. I still think it's a bit weird that each of the points are touching. So is it maybe that this is going in too far? So I'm just having a look in here, and it's going to be hard to see, but going through, I think the contacts are correct there. So I don't think it's either of those jack ports. it could be the chip itself. We'll check around the board and see if there's any shorts. Maybe a capacitor's gone or something and therefore it's not getting anything. And then if not, what we might do is see if we can possibly apply power to this and then see whether maybe something shows up on the thermal cam, because it's kind of confusing me at the moment. So I'm just going to go over these capacitors. There's only a couple, and see if any of them show a short. .56 ohms, so that came up as a short, but I think that might just be low impedance. So I don't think it's only the capacitors. And I wonder, is that getting through? So what? I'll just test the capacitors on the other board just in case it is something not making it through. So there's a big one there. So what we might do then is we might try and see if we can cheat, and I would just apply power to the board and then see if anything heats up at all. I wonder if it will power on without the other board attached. It might need the other board to be attached for it to actually work. Just see whether the thermal cam shows anything. So there is a heat spot, but I don't know if that's the actual power itself. Let me just get something plastic, and then we'll see if we can pinpoint where that heat spot is. I feel like maybe it's just the actual power jack itself. Let's turn it over and see if we can pinpoint it this way. Yeah, I feel like maybe that is just the power adapter, so we can't actually see anything that way. But let's just double check that there's not a short on the actual power itself. The fact it turns on makes me think there wouldn't be, but hard to tell. Not sure how much of that you saw there, but you're back in shot there. So we're seeing the mode that beeps there. I believe these two should be the two ground. So one of them is a mounting pin. So I think this is the negative and this is the positive. So it does show a 13 ohm short there. Which I think the back is just a mounting pin. So this one here is just a mounting pin, and then this is the negative, I believe. No, so that'll be the, which way is it? Is it center pin? So it's center pin negative. So this one here is the negative, this is the positive, and it is showing sort of changing. I feel that might just be the capacitors building up, but it's not a direct short. They're saying 10 ohms, so it's 10 ohms. Don't know if that's right or not. So there's a couple of these other types of capacitors on here which we can just go across and check to make sure neither of those are shorted. So I don't think any of those are shorted. I don't think any of our capacitors are shorted. Maybe there's this voltage regulator. Any of the legs on those connected? So it's still hard to tell. I still can't be certain it's not on this board itself. But I can't see anything that stands out. But we might just need to get this other board and see. It's hard to tell which side the actual issue sits on. But I still don't think it's on this side because it actually powers on. So we have a couple of chips on this, and I'm not entirely sure what this is here. So it says HFD4 2.4 NUX-LS. And then there's another chip. So it could be one of those has gone faulty, and they're like the actual audio output chip has gone. So what I might do is just type those part numbers into Google, see what they come up as, and see what they are. So give me 2 seconds and I will be back with you. Okay, so the first one we've got here, this black chip here, is a 74HCU04, which comes up as a unbuffered hex inverter. I don't know what that means. So we'll just take a look at the other one. And so this white one here is a relay. So that could be the problem on this. It might be that if that's not getting the voltage it needs, it might not tell it to turn on. So what I think we'll do is, let me just try plug this back in and see if we can follow any voltages around. So we'll plug this in and then we'll see if it's getting any voltage at all, even though it's not plugged into anything. So we should be able to test this on the bottom to begin with. If we go to voltage DC, and if we go between this pin and this pin, we have okay, so here and here we have our 9 volts. So the power is coming in. And we'll see if we can trace it to anywhere. So where does it go? So it comes in and goes to the switch to begin with. So we know the switch works because we're getting power when we turn it on, but we can just double check that. So we have, it comes through here, but we have nothing diagonally until we press the button. So we know our switch works. So it comes in, comes through the switch, and then enters into what is like a little voltage regulator. So we'll plug it back in and see if we can see if we can see any voltages on this relay. Because if it's not getting to the, maybe if the relay is not getting any power, it's not going to turn on. First pin. Try and move this over so you can see. So I don't think this relay is getting anything because I can't get anything to come up there. Let's see if we can find this voltage anywhere else. So what I might try and do is just see if we can plug this back into the main board and see if we can notice anything as a result of that. Okay, so that's plugged back in. And I can actually hear the relay kicking in. I don't know if it comes across on the camera. But when you plug in, there's you can hear the relay click, and you can see the clip level comes in. It then seems to cut out. So I think the relay is working there, so I don't think there's anything on that side. Any of those voltages now showing. So we turn the switch on. We get it on the other side. Those voltages still show. Okay, so the clip level is now on the whole time. Makes me think that it's getting input now from somewhere. So we take this out. So I don't know if I've touched something, but that clip level is still showing. So it's getting input and it's almost like it's stuck on something. So let's take this out, remove the board again, and then see whether we can put it back in and see if it still shows, because it might help pinpoint where the issue is. Could be that one of the input or output chips has gone, and that's why. So we'll just plug this back in and see whether it still shows as clipping, or whether maybe I've just touched something. So it's now back in. We'll plug power back in. Okay. So now the clip level is gone back out. So I feel like something's just slowly faulting, or it could be that I touched it and just removing it has reset it. But the relay's definitely working. So I might need to get the other board out and have a look at that to get a real idea of what's going on, because it doesn't look like it's on this top board here. I can't see anything there. That relay's turning on, I can hear it. Everything seems to be registering through okay. So it looks like the chip here is exactly the same as the one that's on this board. I can't quite work out the markings on the other one because there's just something on it, but if we get it out we might be able to see what that is. So we'll look to pull this apart and have a look at the other side. But I'll pause this one out and I'll come back and we'll take this apart. I've just got some things I need to do. And then, yeah, we'll have a look at the rest of this. Okay, so I'm back. It's been a little bit of time and I figured I'd try and actually work out how this works. So I know how a compressor works. I know what it does, but I don't really know how guitar pedals work. So to try and figure out what the problem was, I figured I'd look it up and try some things. Basically, you can see there's a clip light on here. So what I figured was the case is I try and work out whether it's the input that was the problem or the output. And I figured the clip light might show if we clip the signal on the input. So tried playing through it, nothing would come up. So I figured I'd do the wise thing and actually look at the instruction manual for this pedal and try and see kind of how that works. And I found out something quite interesting. Basically, there's two modes that you can put this into when you turn it on. There's a true bypass mode and a buffered bypass mode. The true bypass would obviously allow the signal to run straight through it and not go through any of the circuitry. So in my testing around, I found something quite interesting. So I'll put the video in here. I'll pop over to the studio and I'll just drop something in here. So hopefully I can show you a bit better.
Hey, so I'm back in the studio just trying to work out how this pedal works a bit better, try and work out whether it's the input or the output side. So I've just got my guitar into the pedal, into just this little orange combo amp here, trying to work out whether it was the input that's the problem or the output that's the problem, because I'm still intrigued by this clip light here. So I figured I could try and work out whether it was the input by trying to overload it. If I overload it and that light came on, then I know that it's clipping and therefore the input side is fine and it's the output that's the issue. But I found something a bit interesting, and it turns out that that clip light doesn't work like that. It's actually a mode you can turn on by just holding down this button. You can see hopefully there the light's on, and if I hold down that button again, it turns off. So it's just a little toggle button here. So on, off. So it's not actually to show that the signal is clipping. But looking into it, I found something else that's a bit interesting as well. It turns out that that's not the only mode you can switch. There's actually a mode you can switch on the input that changes the bypass mode, whether it's buffered or clean. Basically, let me just show you how this works then. So if I try and balance this here. So we have our pedal. If we unplug it and hold down the toggle button and plug it in, it should change the mode. And as you can now hear, we have sound come through. And then if we turn it on, so you can see it's now working. It's allowing sound through. So basically, I think it might be whatever is changing that state that's the problem, because it's working in one side but not the other. I'm guessing, and I need to double check, that this light turns on when it's in bypass, and then it's off when it's no longer bypassed. I don't really understand why it says blend, though. That's the only thing that's sort of throwing me off with that. But it does make sound. It does pass through. So we'll take it back over to the mat and see if we can't work out a bit better why that is.
Okay, so what you can see from the video there is that when we switch those modes over, sound travels through. And I'm guessing that's because we're moving it into the true bypass mode rather than the buffered bypass, or vice versa, one of the other two things. So I did a bit of research and looking into it to try and work out sort of what controls that and what causes that. And it's this chip just here. So I believe it's a 4053. 4053 is the type that came up. And I believe that is the multiplexer chip that we looked at. Now, I'm probably completely wrong here, don't really know how it works, but my understanding is it works a bit like a switch. And as we obviously change those two modes, it changes which output the feed runs through or changes something within the circuit to do it. And my understanding is it's not switching between those two modes, or one of those two modes is not working. So I think if we swap this out, we'll get sound in both sides. Arguably, you could probably run the pedal just as is, because I'm sure most people would probably prefer the true bypass mode to the actual buffered bypass. But to try and work out whether that is 100% the problem, I'll get one of these chips ordered up and then we'll jump back in and see whether it fixes the problem. And we're back. So I've got the chips here. It took a couple of days for them to arrive. Obviously, it's only been a few moments for you guys. I think got like a pack of 10 or something for them, considering they seem to be quite popular. I've actually seen them turn up in a few different devices since getting these. So clearly they have a few things. So if we remember, it's this chip here that we're saying. So we worked out that this top board or bottom board, whichever way you want to look at it, we're presuming is okay, but we're guessing it's probably this chip here that's not allowing the switching between the two. So we just need to try and work out how to get this out now. So we'll start with these two screws. So that's nice and simple. So it looks like that toggle switch doesn't actually affect anything. It's just on this side. So we get to have a look at this side of the board as well. So we've got the 3 potentiometers, the LED at the top here, a few different capacitors, and is that the same? No, so that's a different one. So I wonder whether that's where it actually contains the, I guess, whatever causes the actual change. So this is the one that we need to get off. We will try and cover some bits up. I've got some tape that I'll probably use just to try and cover over it, just try and prevent anything from melting. And then I'll get some, because an LED on the other side, so hopefully that won't cause a problem. But then I'll get some tape to cover it all up, and then hopefully we won't melt anything. There we go. So what was it? It's 4053, and if we just try and sit that on top. Looks to be about identical to me. So what I might do is, to make this a bit easier for you guys to see, is I might just switch over to the microscope quickly, and then hopefully it'll make both lifting this off a bit easier, because I should hopefully be able to see a bit earlier that the solder is melted, and it might make it a bit easier for you guys to see as well. So we're here, just under the microscope there. Everything's kind of covered in Kapton tape. So we'll start by adding a bit of flux around. Remember, the flux just helps the solder flow. But we'll try and watch out, because it will likely start to get underneath that Kapton tape and try and lift it up. So I might just add another layer just off to the side there, just to try and protect the plastic a bit more. Because So I really don't want to melt that connector because otherwise it's not going to fit back together again properly. So I'll get my hot air station here. And what are we set to? We'll start with 300 for now. We'll start at a lower temperature, just because this board is very thin. Just start by heating the board up a bit, just slightly wider area. Just because with these smaller boards, if you're not careful, they start to, I believe, popcorn lift up and they get damaged. So we'll start with just a wider area to heat this up, and then we'll just come in a bit closer. We'll try and keep the hot air moving, and then hopefully we should start to see the solder wet. So I want to be careful because I don't want to lift up any pads. Okay, I might just increase the temperature a bit. We'll increase the airflow a touch as well. Put a bit more flux on there. We'll come back in again. We'll try and heat up the board because it's probably lost a bit of heat there. Want to make sure I don't melt the LED on the other side. There we go, that came off nicely. Might just need to get some better tweezers though, because they are not gripping. Nice. Okay, so I've swapped my tweezers out. I've got the new chip here. We can see just on the board there's a little dip here, so that indicates which side the chip goes. And then if we take a look, there's a dot at the top to show which way around that goes. So I'll just get my hot air station again, heat that up, and then we'll just try and drop it in place. Hopefully we'll get it right first time. If not, we might just need to come in with a reflow. You can see the solder start to wet there. See some of the pads are getting shiny. We just need to wait till they're all up. Okay, that's close. It looked like it moved into place slightly anyway. But what I'll do is I'll get a bit of flux, come in, and then we'll just try for a reflow. And surface tension should pull it into place if it's not there already. Yeah, I think that's there. I'm not sure if you saw, but it started to lift up. So I'll give that a bit of time to cool down, and then we'll just double check all those legs. So I'm just going to give them a little nudge one by one just to make sure that they're attached. It's not completely centralized, but as long as each leg is connected, then that's all good. So I just give each leg a little nudge just to make sure they're connected. They don't have to be completely covered, but as long as they are connected and not moving, then that's it. So you can see some of them could have made a slightly better connection. You still sort of see the tops of them, but they look all connected to me. So I think we'll give this a clean up and then we'll put it in and give it a test. So I think I'm going to use half a top and just try and clean up the touch. I think it's like slightly warm. That should be better. It has flux. Goes a bit tacky next time. Then it's harder to clean off. Nothing is melted. Doesn't look like it. We just want to get it over here. Not able to balloon. That flux kind of everywhere. So we get this. I'm just doing the bottom side as well because that's on the side and stuff. The flux is floating through. Come to the other side. It's the as clean as we can get. It's a bit harder to get one because it's grooves, but also makes one harder. And it looks like we're going to go something. Still looks good. So let's get it and get it off. So we'll get the case back again, and this will just slide straight in there. And then with these, because these little side bits are what hold this bottom kind of plate in place, they fall in the way a bit, so they're kind of easier just to remove and then slot this back in. Push it in so the connector's there, and then we'll just put these back in and then we can tighten them up and that'll hold it in place. Just need to make sure it goes on straight because they're very thin, they're quite easy to get cross-threaded, so you just have to be a bit careful. There's one. The other one, washer on first. And then that still clicks, and then we'll just put the bottom screws in. Ideally, I'd test see whether the power works here still, but it's easier just to jump into the studio for that. So these are, I believe, set. Yeah, so they've got little grooves so that they will fit back in the right way. And I think earlier in the video, I said about this blend button. You'll see it sort of makes sense here now. I don't know what I was thinking. Obviously, the blend is for this part. That light is obviously just for on or off. So next, we'll be back over in the studio. Hopefully, we still get power, and then we'll give this a test and see whether it allows us to change mode between the two bypasses and still works.
So here we are back in the studio. We're going to give this a test just to make sure the power works to begin with. So I've got the pedal here and I've got the power lead. Plug it in. We have a light. That's positive. Try and get the glare off of this a bit. There we go. So we still have power. What we'll do is we'll plug this in. So this is the output side to the amp. And then we'll plug the guitar into this side. Just try and clear some room. Okay, so I'm plugged into the guitar, plugged into the pedal. And nothing there so far. Let's try changing modes. Okay, so it still works on that mode. And nothing still on that side. So we'll double check that chip, but it may well be that that wasn't the problem after all. Okay, so we'll jump back in and have a look at that chip again.
So we still had the same fault there, so we'll get this open and take a look and see whether all was well. There's a chance it might just be that chip's now not soldered on properly. It might be that it was another faulty one. Hard to work out. It might be that it may not have been the fault at all. Because I don't have a scope or anything and my desk isn't really set up to test audio. So they all look connected, but there's a chance maybe they're not as connected as well as they could be. So I reckon we'll get it back under the microscope. We'll just touch up each of the legs and then hopefully all will be okay. So we just zoom in and have a look. Each of them look like they're good. There's that side. And then this side. So they all look soldered to me, but hard to tell. I've seen a few other videos where I think people had similar problems, and it's always been this 4053 chip. Add a bit of flux, and then we'll run over this. Probably using a tip that's probably a bit too big for the job here, but it might make it a bit quicker. Just come in. And then we can just kind of drag solder this. Just get a bit more solder on my tip. Don't need to worry too much about this bridge. We'll just try and clear it off. So I had just a bit too much solder there. So what we can do is just come in with a bit of solder wick and then try and see if we can just lift that up slightly. What we'll do for now is if we just try and run over the other side, and I can come back to that in a little bit just because I'm a bit cautious of this because there's a resistor on this side as well. So I just want to be sure I can get this side done without causing any further problems. Then we'll clean those bridges up afterwards. Excellent, that side's all done. We'll just get rid of these bridges. What I'm doing here is just moving the iron in, waiting till it melts, and then just dragging back. And then the solder is obviously just sticking to the iron and leaving the legs clear. So there's that, nice and sorted. And I believe all our legs are fully attached now. I feel like they possibly were before, but we can be certain they are now. So I'm just going to clean this up again because we've got all this excess flux. I'm not feeling too confident that this will be the fix, so it might just need a bit more investigate to try and work out what is causing the problem. But from what I've seen, that 4053 chip is the number one problem with these kinds of pedals. So, and it is suffering the same symptoms that those other pedals have had, where that replacement has fixed it. There we go, back together. So we'll jump back into the studio and give it another test.
So we'll give this another go then. So we're plugged in, we still have power. But I don't think we are working still. Let's try change this mode again. So we're plugged into the guitar. Nothing there. No, so it's still doing the same things it was before. So if anyone has any idea what it might be, what might be causing it, let me know, and we'll see if we can get this one working. Because what I have just worked out there is even in the other mode, it's not actually adjusting anything. So if we change back to the other mode. We're not getting any difference in when we change those dials around. So yeah, let me know if anyone's got any ideas what they think it might be, and hopefully we'll get this one fixed soon.